Sometimes when I'm thinking about us, before we got lost and we parted, back to back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. Back we would carry on and we'd do anything for what we started. But this time we could break. I'm running dry, everything's the same. We'll try tonight. This time we're not safe and sound, not safe and sound. What if I'm no good for you? What if you're no good for me? Yeah.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty. How you doing today, Blunty?
Good, Joshua. How's it going today?
I'm doing very well. In case anybody out there was wondering why the show notes were not updated, I think they've been updated now. Every time I try to save the file, change to the video description, it says I couldn't. YouTube complains at me. Let me just double check, because I know people like to look at all the links and all the stuff that we are talking about. Yes, that got saved, but it wouldn't save the title. Oh well, the title is just going to stay FPV News with JB and ItsBlunty, at least for now, because we got a show to do, right, Blunty? We got a lot of good stuff this week.
Yeah, lots of good stuff.
What kind of stuff do we have this week on the news?
All right, so this week we're going to start with a follow-up about the AULine batteries. We saw that last week from CycloneFPV, so we'll talk about the response.
AULine? AULine? You mean AULine? You mean AULine? Yeah.
AULine.
I'll never get tired of making that. Eventually, they're going to change the name of their company, and I'm going to feel bad. But
then you'll be saying, "Oh, line."
Okay, moving on.
Robots are building drones now, apparently. So yeah, the end's coming.
Right. I believe this is exactly how Terminator started.
Yes.
Okay.
We've got drone soccer coming to Colorado, so that's pretty cool. We'll talk about what drone soccer is and yeah, what that's all about.
Yeah. I always like to see people using drones in unusual ways, and I think drone soccer is one of the more. Well, we'll talk about it.
So the NASA Ingenuity copter finally flew on Mars. I think a lot of people are stoked about that. It's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
We'll discuss that, take a look at the video and stuff. I
Yeah.
think everybody's excited about that.
Multi-rotors
sure.
on Mars. What could you not love?
Yeah, good thing it wasn't a DJI drone they were able to
Good
take
thing.
off.
I just want to know if the pilot had visual line of sight, because otherwise the FAA is going to be pissed.
Yeah. We'll talk about the DJI FPV drone and why it's disarming may be kind of controversial. We'll talk about like what you do in a panic situation and how the disarming works on the FPV drone in manual mode.
Yeah. This is the kind of thing that DJI knows how to build camera drones that don't crash. But maybe they didn't quite get this right with their first, high-performance FPV drone.
Yeah. So we'll talk about how some OpenTX controllers and some other basically ways you get your radio into the simulator through your computer don't actually send full stick resolution when you use them as a game controller in Windows. So we'll talk about which ones those are and what to look out for, but essentially some of them are sending a smaller resolution than others.
And you'll get to find out, much like last week when we talked about Tracer on the Tango 2 being sent at 30 hertz, and I said, did you notice? We'll get to find out if that resolution actually matters to you, if you've been having that resolution and not even noticed.
We'll have a community spotlight this week from Bastian Sonderman. He actually worked on and got out the BLHeli 32 to BLHeli S music converter that we talked about last week. So that's pretty sweet. I'll take a look at that.
All right.
We've got a video of a guy dropping a rocket-powered plane from an RC plane. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And when I saw this in the show notes, I was like, oh, okay. And then I watched the video. And suffice it to say, if you want to make something awesome, light off a rocket. Anything that happens after the rocket lights off is going to be exciting and entertaining. Success or failure. In fact, that's, I think, why Elon Musk started freaking, what's the name of his company? Not Tesla, the rockets. SpaceX, yeah. He was just like, yeah, rockets.
Yeah, why not? We'll take a look at a guy who put whistles on a Beast class drone. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Okay.
Why not?
As if Beast class isn't cool enough already. Let's put some. All right, we got some community interest this week. Fair enough.
The DRL Simulator is finally out for PlayStation. So if that matters to you, that's a thing that's happening. Pretty cool for people who only have a PlayStation.
Yeah, those poor bastards.
And we'll do a rant. We've got another rant for you this week. I think we both feel pretty strongly about this one. For some reason, there are a specific set of BLHeli S ESCs that you cannot use bidirectional Dshot on. And we'll talk about what those ESCs are and why.
Yeah, and I always like to put something really, really good at the end so people stick around. I have noticed, and maybe you've noticed this too, if you have a BetaFPV all-in-one toothpick or whatever flight controller, and you put JESC on it, and even though you did everything right, bidirectional Dshot will not work. I've noticed this. I've been like, I guess it just doesn't work on that flight controller. But it turns out that may actually be being done on purpose by accident. It's not just a random screw up. So we're going to rant about that for a while. Yeah. But we're going to start off this week with a follow-up to our piece from last week about AULine GoldLine batteries. And just, Blunty, will you just catch us up for those who didn't see last week? What happened?
Yeah, so basically last week, CycloneFPV, a retailer here in the U.S., Tarek, went through his stock of batteries on a live stream from AULine because he had a lot of his customers in a row complaining about a certain batch of batteries that he had. So he decided to go through and test those and make sure and see, hey, what's going on, but let's do it on stream. Let's figure it out. So he went through a bunch of different batches, and most of them were fine. And then he hit about 1,000 milliamp hours, and that's when it started to go south. And he had basically an entire batch of batteries that were testing with missing cells that were under a volt, some cells that were like less than a volt, but then some were full charge. Just basically a lot of issues, high IR, things like that. Clearly not sellable packs, like not reasonably good packs.
Right. When you say he hit 1,000 milliamp hours, you mean he was going through his packs from like the largest to the smallest, and it was the ones above or below 1,000 milliamp hours?
He was going from the smallest up, I think, and it was the ones like at 1,000 and up that were where he started seeing the issue.
Funny you say that, because Rescue 7 in the Discord just posted this. Brand new, he says. Brand new out of the box. Gold line battery.
I mean, that's basically what Tarek's tests look like in Tarek's
There's some dead cells there. You see there's a missing. One's at 2.71 volts, and then 2 of the cells are completely dead. So, oops. Yeah, and it's 1,000 milliamp hours, so that's probably just a coincidence.
Yeah.
So, Tarek from CycloneFPV, first of all, as we said last week, kudos to Tarek for actually, like a lot of companies would have just assumed that the customer made a mistake or was dumb, and the customer ruined the battery and now is trying to... a lot of people would not have done the effort that he went to test all these batteries and to test them on live stream. It really shows that where his heart is at, that he's got his customers back, and that he's not afraid to go on a live stream and say... Like, when you're live streaming, what happens. If the results don't go the way you wanted, you look like an idiot in front of all the people who are 469 concurrent viewers. So, AULine responded, and they said, let me put up from the show notes their response. They actually reached out. They sent this out, and they also talked to me. They sent this same thing to me just to make sure I saw it, because we covered this on the news. And they say, "Dear customers and pilots." Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So basically they're saying that regarding the AULine battery testing video that CycloneFPV released on April 11th, after 4 days of investigation, we found that he received internal test batteries, is essentially what they're saying. So, we apologize about this. It's a big deal. We understand that sort of thing is kind of what they're saying in here, but essentially they're saying that they can tell by the size of the packs that he received a set of internal test battery cells. And they know that because the width is different than some first version cells that they are saying that they have. So that's how they know the difference. They traced it back to their warehouse records, and they say that they did find that the warehouse manager mistakenly delivered these, and they're hoping everybody can be understanding. They wanted to make this public, and they're also saying that they're going to send Cyclone some more packs, basically a newer version of the pack, to replace the packs that he has lost.
Right. So, what do you think of that? I mean, does that... let me start here. Let's start here. It is true that manufacturers will have test packs. They'll run a batch. They'll see if the batch is good. It is entirely plausible that there were a pack of batteries but they sent them out. Yeah. They sent... two things. They sent them out to a retailer. And number two, the real thing that I think I keep coming back to is, if Tarek hadn't followed up on this, no one would have known. Customers would have just been like, I got screwed. And customers still, they may send a new batch of batteries to Tarek, but what about everyone? What are the dimensions of this pack? Here, let me put it back on the stream. If you have, this is just one pack that they're showing. Who knows how many others are out there? People with bad AULine batteries. Sorry, I'm ranting. I'm cutting you off. You rant for a minute.
Fine.
No, you're fine. No, what do you think, Blunty?
They're basically saying that any cell, like it's a 38 millimeter cell in this version of the battery, is somehow a test cell, and those cells cannot be trusted, essentially. And for some reason, I don't know. I just think like it's a little confusing to me if you think about the situation, because I don't know. It seems odd that the entire pack of test batteries were all. Some of them had, no cell activity or bad cell activity. They were all packaged just like normal batteries. They all went into normal battery boxes. They all shipped out with the warehouse inventory manager.
If you have like these test packs that are like potentially terrible, why do they have retail labels stuck on them? Why don't they have a special label that says test pack, do not ship? Why were they put into retail packaging? How did and why were there like apparently how big was this order? Hundreds of packs. Why were there hundreds of test packs? I don't know. Something doesn't add up here to me.
Yeah, and then the other thing I guess that I started to consider here is also like if you're doing QC on everything that leaves, then that box of packed batteries should have gotten QC'd before it was boxed, regardless of where the battery came from.
Yep.
So if it's like in chain to QC out of that box, then you would notice it's the test batteries because the size is wrong and they test poorly. And then you would have seen the QC and then you pulled that box. So like, yeah, to me, like there's so many pieces here that would have had to break down in their process, and the process seems to have been really not proper in the first place if this all played out as they stated.
Right. Their excuse that, our warehouse manager made a mistake, even if you take that excuse in the best possible light, it still doesn't look real good for you, because it says that the fact that this was able to happen doesn't speak well to your QC procedures and so forth.
And the other thing I'll say is that it also is just very convenient that the only pack of batteries that went out that were bad, that happened to be internal test cells, went to the one person who went on a YouTube live stream and streamed out and showed everybody what the test results of all the packs were.
Well, I mean, realistically, it seems, I'm trying to word this very carefully. So it seems likely that other vendors also received bad cells and don't know it, and their customers have received those cells and don't know it.
Yeah.
So
we obviously can't know that, but unfortunately, like it does appear that it's just odd that this happened this way. Maybe they could fill us more into their process or tell us why they broke down or how they're fixing this process to show why this can't ever happen again would be great. But also, it just seems like a whole bunch of things had to break down for this to happen. So.
Yeah. I don't know what to say past then. I know there's people out there with bad AULine cells. I feel like if AULine was truly trying to be proactive about this, then they've said, we're going to make this right. We're going to send Tarek new inventory. Well, that just means you got caught. They should know who they sent these cells to potentially. Anybody who received these bad cells should be getting a correction from them. And I haven't heard them say that, although now that we've made a big stink about it, maybe they will.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah.
Obviously, all
there
we
should
want
be a
is
recall,
people to get good batteries.
Yeah, Scott R.C. Roscoe, recall. Yeah. You need to have you're gonna eat some crow on this, because some people out there will have batteries that maybe they destroyed them, but you just have to give people the benefit of the doubt once you've made a mistake like this. Or you have to say, if your battery has a serial number, or if your battery has these dimensions, send it back, we'll send you a new one. Just making Cyclone right isn't enough.
That's another thing is like all the test packs you would think should be marked a certain way, or like everything should be like serial numbered out, or there should be like a list here of like, if this has these numbers on it, you can tell it's a test pack. Like all these things are things you do in a manufacturing process and in a warehouse to make sure that these breakdowns don't happen.
Yep, absolutely. So best case scenario is AULine made a mistake, and if they did make a mistake, they need to make it right. Anybody who has received these batteries needs to get a replacement, not just CycloneFPV. And everyone out there needs to ask themselves whether they believe that this was in fact, we accidentally sent out a bad batch of test batteries, versus they just had a bad run. I mean, we have to consider the possibility that they just had a bad run of batteries, their QC didn't catch it, and they shipped, and now they're trying to save face. We don't know if that's true or not, but we can certainly decide in our hearts whether we believe that.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Here's the thing. Kudos to AULine. They're a relatively new FPV company. I don't know who backs them or where they came from, but they're trying to make products. They want to make good batteries. AULine, I will say this, they are one of the only manufacturers to have sent me batteries for testing. Most manufacturers, they send batteries for testing, or they don't send batteries for testing because they just would rather just sell you packs and not know whether they're good or bad. They don't care. Many manufacturers, if they do send batteries for testing, they'll try and say, well, could you not release the results if they're bad? And I'm like, no, that's not how any of this works. AULine, to their credit, did send me packs for testing. I tested them, and my results were also similar to this. And we had actually been talking about it and figuring out whether we wanted to retest when this came out from CycloneFPV. So maybe I got a bad batch too. They didn't mention the bad batch when I had questionable results.
Yeah.
So kudos to them. It seems like they actually care. And we'll see if that is borne out in how they deal with this situation.
Yep.
All right.
Let's real quick mention as well. We linked in the show notes, or we will link in the show notes, a video. Tarek from CycloneFPV also put up his video, just showing that he got the response from Jerry, and then what he's gone through with it as far as his opinion and stuff. So if you wanted to get his side of it, and just so you can hear where his stance is on it, that's his video there. And then he also talks to he has not received the batteries yet, so when he does, he'll put an update there as well. So.
All right, let's move on. What have we got next, Blunty? What's next on the show?
So we got robots and they're building drones. Man, I think this is scary and also really cool.
Let's take a look here at this website, BBC News. I'm going to play this video, but I'm going to mute the video.
Yeah, so basically this kind of is meant to be like sort of like a pick and place, but more.
So sorry, it literally just flies right off the assembly line.
Yeah, so this is actually doing like full pick and place. So it's actually putting down components. It can build the pieces and stuff, or you like line the pieces up on the side and it assembles the pieces. But it actually draws like solder paste, and then it lasers the traces on to solder the motors together and stuff. So it can literally fly right off the line.
Yeah, literally, there's flying off the line. I want to see that again. Now we got some talking. I don't want to hear talking. I'm the one talking here. You and me, Blunty.
So this is an add-on for, I believe, a CNC or like a laser cutter, and they've been able to like attach all these pick and place pieces to the laser cutter.
Let's see here.
I put in another video in the show notes that's a little more.
Oh, okay. All right.
Focused.
Let's see here. What do we got here?
So this just kind of goes through all the different pieces of it. But yeah, it seems really like a really neat idea, and I definitely never see anybody do this. And it's cool that they're using it to retrofit like current systems. So they've also developed a program called Laser Factory. This came out of MIT. So they've got a program where you actually can draw like the board, like how you want it to lay down and what you want it to cut, and like where the solder traces will go and the order everything will get laid in, and shape of all your parts and all that kind of stuff.
It's really cool to see the combination of automated, like pick and place machines aren't new, but usually the mechanical construction of the object is separate from the electrical construction of the object. But here we're combining those into basically one process. And this wouldn't work for everything, but it's very interesting that you can just like build these and they just literally fly right off the line. That's crazy. Does this have any sort of practical application, or is it just a novelty?
I think right now it's kind of a novelty, but I think the idea is sort of a proof of concept, and then everybody can start brainstorming and going like, hey, I wonder, what I could do with this application, or what I could do with this thing. And it's also being built, like, I think it was a project at MIT, but it's something that you can print all the pieces for and then buy some components and actually have like a thing you can put on a laser cutter you already own to do all this stuff. So
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Brandon Bentley in the chat says this will be perfect for my continuously deployable weaponized nanoswarm drone project. Yeah, that's my concern too. How is it controlled? I don't know. It's assumed it's like, where does the drone go?
The drone, I'm not sure. I think they just flew it off. But like the program is actually, they built a whole backend for it. So there's a whole software architecture.
Awesome.
Pretty cool.
Well, that's pretty slick. Who knows how that'll come out in the future, but that's pretty slick. Speaking of things that are pretty slick, Blunty, this is a story from Colorado, where you live. You live in Colorado, and you're actually involved with this story. Drone soccer is coming to Colorado, and I think most people, when you say drone soccer, they think of drones flying around hitting a soccer ball, but that's actually not what it is. What is drone soccer?
Drone soccer is basically you take a small drone and you put it inside of a ball. And you fly that ball around, and then you have either 3 or 5 people, and then you have a bunch of people, all the people blocking, and then one person is trying to fly through the goal on the other side, and they are the ball, essentially. So they're called the striker. and they're trying to get through the hole, and you score points as you go. It's actually really it ends up being fast paced once everybody knows what they're doing, and it's sort of a game of like cat and mouse. You're trying to judge like how fast the person's going to fly into you. You're only allowed to stand in certain areas, so you're kind of using angles to your advantage or disadvantage.
So these guys are flying line of sight.
Yeah, everything's LOS. Yeah.
Interesting. And I guess the striker probably stands right behind the gate.
Yes, exactly.
So
the striker
they can
has to
try
stand in the center. You're right behind the gate, so they can see their gate and shoot the other gate.
Wow. I mean, these, I don't know if these are actual matches or just a demonstration. I'd love to see some actual play. I mean, it feels to me like it would be super chaotic.
It is. Quite chaotic. But I think one of the reasons I'll say is I think currently it's extremely chaotic because people are learning to do it. Like they're still figuring it out. There's a guy here, W. Michael Christensen, who's been working on the PID tuning for them, because obviously the PID tuning is a little bit odd for those things. So he's got it worked out pretty well now, and you can fly them pretty well out of the box. But I think it's something where, like, as everybody was learning, even over the day that I was there, like flying them at the museum, it was very much like we were all developing strategy already. So I think, the thing they're doing now in Colorado is they're starting a training camp for kids. So they're doing a STEM classes for kids, like Tuesday through Friday every week through June and July for kids like 12 to 17. There's like a summer camp where they're going to build these drones, like put the parts together and then get to fly them and like learn the sport.
Nice.
And they're also putting together an adult league. And the adult league is where they'll have like teams and actually do competitions and have money and stuff to build the league. And I think that'll be cool because then you'll have like strategies and people like playing week to week and like starting to understand like how it works. And I think that's when you'll see it like become a real sport. Because if you watch like some of the South Korean stuff, I think it's pretty cool, but it's slow. And this seems to be a lot faster and smaller.
Yeah, you definitely are going to, you can't just master it as a pickup. If you just play it as a pickup, you're just barely going to be operating as a team. But then as you get a regular team, people will start to really learn strategies and skills. I think it's cool. These are actually these are ready to fly kits from iFlight. Are they build yourself DIY kits?
Yeah, they're providing them both ways. So they're doing DIY for STEM. So if you want to order them and then as a kid learn to put them together, they're doing that. And then they'll also have like a bind and fly kit where you just take it out of the box and fly it.
Yeah, presumably they would sell you like a kit of like 4 or 5 to be a whole team. Just get it together with your friends and play some, I guess, drone soccer.
Yeah, cool. Pretty cool. I'll say this is a iFlight sponsored league, I believe. They're kind of like helping with all this. I saw LDARC is also coming out with a drone soccer ball too for the U.S. market. So that's pretty cool. I think LDARC is the one who makes the South Korean drones.
Somebody in the chat said that's here it is. Big Data Pimp in the chat says that's not soccer, that's Quidditch. I actually thought I had that feeling. It's a little more like Harry Potter Quidditch. And there have been some attempts to play Quidditch like on a pitch, but if you can't fly, you're not playing Quidditch. Then somebody decided it should be License to Drive decided it should be called Quadditch. Oh,
that's a good one. Quadditch.
Anyway,
unofficial name of drone soccer.
There you go. One unofficial. Really slick. Speaking of flying copters in unusual ways, here's video from a copter that flew in a very unusual place. Ooh, I'm working on my segues. Oh, NASA's Ingenuity copter flying on Mars. We've got a link to this video in the show notes. There are some real challenges, Blunty, with flying on Mars. This is freaking live video from Mars. I mean, it's not live. Okay. For one thing, do you know how thick the atmosphere is there?
Yeah, I think it's 1% of the hold on, 1/3 the gravity and 1% the atmosphere, I believe is what it is.
Yeah, somebody said it was like 90,000 feet here on Earth. So there's basically like no atmosphere to actually make the props work.
Yeah. This is why they didn't do the quadcopter design, because they originally, I think, started by looking at quadcopters, but they eventually decided that it would be so big they couldn't fit it on the rover.
Right.
So they ended up going with single blades and then stacking them, and they just had to do giant blades and make it super light to be able to fly it.
It makes me wonder how you even test those prop designs, because like you can imagine like the prop profile is probably specialized for the atmosphere, the speed, the kV of the motor, whatever. Like, how do you test it in a giant vacuum chamber? I don't even know.
No, there's actually a video by Veritasium, if you know who that is. He actually has a video where he went to the NASA lab and saw them testing this thing before it went on the rover. So maybe we'll put a link to that in the show notes. But I believe they have like a special test facility where they like put certain constraints on it to make it think it's like way heavier than it is, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Yeah, and didn't they have to do a firmware update or something? Like originally it wasn't working?
Yeah, it took them a while because they had to upload firmware to the drone.
Just like us, right? The first thing you do when you get the quad, you got to frickin' flash the firmware.
Yeah, but imagine having to get your hex file to Mars. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy. It's really crazy. Like it's so inspiring to see people attaching to this, and I don't know, those freaking rovers, man. People just love the rovers. On the one hand, the relationship between what's going on here and what we do on a daily basis is pretty tenuous. On the other hand, we can literally say a multi-rotor flew on Mars, and that just those words coming out of your mouth and being true are so freaking cool. So
yeah,
awesome.
Pretty cool.
All right, what's next, Blunty?
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the DJI FPV drone. I know everybody was missing that talk. I know we haven't talked about it in a while, and everybody's like, oh, where's that content?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about it, though. So the DJI FPV drone does not have a traditional way to disarm. Instead of a switch, right, because it doesn't have switches on that controller.
Yeah, well, I mean, go ahead. I got it right here. We can look at it.
Yeah. So instead of a switch, they say that, so if you're in manual mode and you're flying around ripping like a freestyle acro pilot like would do, and you've got a disarm, on our drones, you just hit disarm. So on the DJI drone, what do you do?
Well, the DJI drone, I mean, traditionally, DJI drones are flown in like assisted mode, and the way you disarm is you just lower the stick and you land, and it disarms. You don't need to like immediately disarm it right now because it's crashed and it's chopping someone's face off.
Yeah.
So on the DJI drone, what do you? But they've got a way for you to disarm it rapidly, don't they?
Yes, and so that is double tapping. What button is that? The
this
start,
one right
stop
here.
Button?
Yeah, this is the start stop button. And if you, I don't actually know what else this button does, frankly, but if you double tap the button rapidly, the quad literally just falls out of the air, as long as you're in manual mode.
Yes, as long as you're in manual mode. And so I think that's one of the things that's going to confuse people and may cause some issues. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today.
Okay, hang on 1 second. RC Ritter is in the chat saying it doesn't work. RC Ritter, I can tell you, I mean, I can't speak to your experience and Blunty the video, but before this, like literally 15 minutes before the stream, I went outside with my DJI drone. I armed it. I took off in normal mode. I switched to manual mode, and then I went click, click, and it fell out of the air. So it did work for me like 15 minutes ago. Continue, Blunty. Yeah. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so a couple of the concerns that I had is one, right, it's obviously not a clean and clear thing. It's not a switch, right? It's buttons. So he can't say like, hey, I know that the switch was down, right? He can just say, I know I double tapped the button. And so the DJI drone can't see like in half a second that the switch is down still. Because if it doesn't see the double tap, or if there's some issue with communication protocol or whatever, let's say, right? On a normal drone, it would eventually see the switch state change. But on the drone, if it misses the double tap somehow, then it's not going to get a disarm command. So let's say
because there's a temporal component. A switch is either on or it's off, and then once it's off, it's just off.
Yeah. So that being said, let's say that is working correctly. There's another situation which I linked a video to, which was the Rotarive video. And in a Rotarive video, they were teaching a new person to fly in manual mode. And it seems to me like what we see in the video that I've linked is he's going to come in and he's basically going to crash. And he tries to disarm. And you'll see the video of him pressing the button, double tapping, trying to get it to stop. And it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And they're confused as to why that happens. And so my guess as to what happens here is he hits the top left button. Now, what button is that? I don't remember the name of it.
So on the DJI controller, the top left button is the emergency stop button. If you are in any mode and you hit the emergency stop button, it switches to normal mode, it locks out all the controls, and it hovers. It just comes to a complete stop. And the failure mode that I think you're describing is if you freak out and you hit that button, now it's in normal mode and the disarm doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, the only way the disarm works in normal or sport mode is the DJI drone has to detect that it's in a crash. And it seems like from the video that it wasn't believing it was in a crash because it wasn't shutting off with him double tapping over and over again. And then it eventually shuts off once it finally decides, oh, hey, I've crashed.
Well, was he flying in full manual in that crash?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching the video. Let's go back to, let's freeze frame this video and let's just see what really happened. Oh, oops, wrong. No. How about this one? There we go. So if we watch this video, he comes in. Okay, continue. Where was the crash? I should have just gone to your timestamp, Blunty. Now I've messed it up. Let me get your timestamp, Blunty. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
965. So here's the crash. They show his hands on the controller. See, it's still armed. It's still flying. In a minute, it'll figure out that it's crashed, but it could have easily, chewed a baby's face off by now. Do you see that? Is he pressing right here? That's what I think he's doing. Right. It doesn't look like this finger is pressing the start-stop to disarm.
I think he's got his middle finger pressing it.
Well, even if he's just holding it down, that's not going to do it.
Right, but you'll see. I think he starts tapping.
I do see. It just moved. It just moved right there. See? Yeah. Back and to the left. Back and to the left, like the freaking Zapruder film. He may be trying to do it. I definitely see him tapping right here. Do you see him tapping right here?
Yep.
So I think he's just kind of freaking out and tapping. Maybe he's tapping the start-stop. But regardless, and the quad is still flying, right? So he's not disarming, that's for sure.
And so the bottom, at him, turn it off, and he's like, I am.
Yeah. The bottom line is the disarming method on the DJI drone is confusing if you haven't trained on it. And it should be consistent. There should just be, like, I could see, for example, like a long press on this will disarm. Well, that wouldn't work because it would need to be fast. Shoot. Yeah. See, it's complicated. Somebody should get it right.
Switch. I mean, part of it is that it doesn't have a switch, but like to me, the reason that they don't just give you a switch or a quick way to disarm is because for 90%, 98% of people that aren't in manual mode freestyling, they're going to drop their drone out of the air.
Yeah.
And then they're going to complain to DJI because their drone fell out of the air because they accidentally flipped the switch. Yep. Like, I know that's not like a good answer, and that's not an answer we would use in the FPV hobby. But I think, like, to me, that's likely why this design decision was made. Because it's just a DJI drone,
Yep. But it's not. It's not. And certainly while flying in sport mode, you could get yourself into a situation where you need to disarm rapidly. So anyway, if you have the DJI drone and you're trying to fly it in manual mode, definitely go. I tested this like a foot off the ground, but test that the disarm works, double click the start stop button in manual mode. And then also you just need to train your brain. If you have trained your brain that this is your oh shit button, I guess in manual mode that still works. It still saves you, but if you actually need to disarm, you need this.
It depends on what's happening. If you catch it early enough and you can stop in that air brake period and you're fine, then you're great. But if you can't, or you are worried about those props spinning and hurting somebody, and you want a way to stop those props, and I think that's like the core idea there.
All right. Get it right, DJI.
Yeah.
Up next. OpenTX controllers don't send full stick resolution. You worked on this one, Blunty. Tell us about it.
Yeah, a little bit. So this guy, Nanpal, posted it in Facebook, and he noticed that essentially he was playing the simulators, and he thought that there was some difference when he was playing the games with some different simulators and solutions he was using. So he decided to use a USB basically serial analyzer and just check it and find out like, hey, what's going on here? What do these inputs look like? So after he did some testing, and then I went back and did some testing, and he went back and did some testing, our final realization here is basically if you're on the XSR sim dongle, if you're on a wireless sim mode with BetaFlight over the flight controller, if you're on either the DJI controller 1 or 2, or if you're on an OpenTX radio that's before 2.3, so any 2.2, you are only getting a quarter of the stick resolution you would get when you fly a quad normally. So you're only getting 256 positions of your stick when you go in any stick location. If you look at like a normal T16, you're instead getting 2,000 stick positions, which is actually double what you get in flight, because OpenTX normally only sends 1,000 to BetaFlight.
Right.
But yeah, so you're definitely getting less resolution with certain modes when you're using them in a sim.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever run into this because I use OpenTX radios plugged directly into the computer. So I'm not using the BetaFlight flight controller mode, and I'm not using a dongle or anything. But the big one was the DJI controllers. These guys, one of their selling points is that you can use them with simulators, and with a 256 resolution. Yikes.
So I guess some people are going to ask, like, how much does that matter? And I don't necessarily know how much that matters for a normal pilot, but I know that most of us would not want to lose a quarter of our stick resolution just because.
Yeah. No.
And it seems like this is something they have to do in the driver. Like there's a special handling for the way they're passing the packets over or something. When I looked at, I linked to like the BetaFlight pull request when they did that in BetaFlight. I'm sorry, for OpenTX rather. And in OpenTX in 2.3, they had to change the way they were sending it. And that's when the selection popped up on your radio to ask you, do you want to use it as a joystick or storage? I noticed that was the change. It was before on OpenTX 2.2, it wasn't asking me. When I flashed 2.3, it asks you, and then it goes into some joystick emulation mode, and I think that's how it can send more bits.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you're happy with how your controller's working, then you don't need to do anything. But if you're using any of those mentioned, they're linked in the show notes. If you're using any of those mentioned ways, you may want to find a different solution, because for the time being, I don't think there's a fix for this. There probably will be.
Yeah, other than updating OpenTX and plugging in directly with a USB, right now that's kind of the only solution because everything uses its own drivers. So this is kind of, I guess, a shout out to the BetaFlight devs. If somebody wants to throw together, a pull request for this, like, and fix the way the bit handling works on BetaFlight. I don't know anything about any of that stuff.
Yeah, me neither.
But, that is something it looks like somebody could do, or at least maybe could tell us why they couldn't do. So,
I mean, it's just like code, right? How hard could it be?
Yeah, of course.
Programmers love it when I say that. It just writes some words on the screen.
Yeah.
Just make it work. Hey, Blunty. Oh, go ahead, Blunty.
If bad, then fix,
Hey, Blunty, I have to ask you something. Going back to one of our previous news items. Do you seriously believe that we put a freaking rover on a rocket and shot it all the way to Mars? Do you seriously believe that? Me too. Okay, just checking.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Should be crazy, man.
Yeah.
So let's go to the community spotlight. This week's community spotlight, we've got Bastian Sonderman. It's back in the community spotlight. He makes your black box sticks. He makes your black box sticks overlay, right? I believe.
Yeah.
The one you use for your videos.
He makes all these little apps.
Yeah. So he made a new one, and this is a BLHeli 32 to BLHeli S music converter for BlueJay. So BlueJay, we talked about last week, added music to melody editor and music startup sounds to BlueJay, and now you can use Bastian Sonderman's website to convert any BLHeli 32 stuff right over to BLHeli S and paste it right in there. There are some limitations. This is like super hacky the way you have to do it because RTTL is kind of limited. Like you have to add extra pauses and like the numbers end up weird, but so you have like note limits and stuff, but as well as it can work, I think it is working currently. So
yeah. So like you didn't used to, we talked last week about how BLHeli SESCs, you can now with this BlueJay configurator, you can have startup music, which I think everybody loves the startup music. And there's tons of BLHeli 32 startup sounds, but the format isn't the same. And now with Bastian, he whipped this up during the live stream. And then you guys
it up during the live stream. And then, I talked to him a little bit about it. He was trying to figure out how interval worked. So I sat down with Sadanesh 5, a guy over on the BlueJay Discord, and we went through and we basically recorded into Audacity all the tones with different intervals, and then basically reverse engineered how long the intervals were and why they were that way. So we got it all figured out. Pretty cool.
Really slick. And it's all free. You just go to this website, linked in the show notes. You can flash this to any BLHeli SESC, I believe.
Yeah, and, I believe any BLHeli SESC, except for one we'll talk about later.
And it adds a couple other interesting. It's got bidirectional Dshot, so you don't need to pay for a JSC license if you don't want to. Not that Joe Lucid doesn't deserve your support. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Definitely check it out. All right. Hey, Blunty, I have a quick question for you. Just a real quick question before we go on. The Earth, round or flat? Where do you stand on that?
It's it's round. It's going to be a big ball, a circle, three-dimensional circle.
That's what I was going to say too.
In fact, yeah.
Okay, cool. Just checking. All right. Moving on. Do you like rockets? Do you like planes?
Yeah.
I like those things too. Where'd you find this video, Blunty?
I found this on the Express LRS Discord, actually.
Oh, nice. And you got us a little time. We got a little timestamp here. These guys, the link to the full video is down there. I don't think there's a lot to say about this, so let's just show it. I don't know. If you think of something to say, go right ahead. Let's just start it right about here.
I think you'll be able to see what happens pretty clearly. But this is FPV, which I think is cool. They're doing it right. That's what I'll say.
100-meter altitude.
But they did a couple tests on this. They wanted to get it right.
Right. So when we drop
getting all set up here out in the middle of the desert.
Aiming away.
Hey, sir, watch out! Your sun's gonna get in your freaking goggles and burn the screens. Jeez, dude. Oh man, somebody call that guy up real quick. Sorry, drives me crazy.
Ready? Yep. All right. 3.
So yeah, they're
all right.
1.
Yeah, you'll see what happens here. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory.
Were they going to drop this plane? So they've dropped this plane. And both of them are being steered with RC control and FPV.
3.
And then...
Don't the jitter. Yep. And, I'm good. I'm arming it and fire.
Hell yeah! Oh, wait a minute.
I couldn't... No. To have no control.
I got it. Wow, that was
Oh my God.
The year-long rocket ladder project.
Yeah, so it actually went so fast, it sheared off the servo control, and he just lost control.
I wondered if that's what happened, that their servos just ripped the control surfaces off.
Yeah, they even had like special control surfaces that were supposed to be stronger, and it definitely did not work. He said he had control for like a couple seconds, and then it just immediately went off. Pretty cool.
There were some flight test episodes where they did some rocket-powered stuff, and that was one of the problems that they had, was getting the right size rocket to not just rip your plane apart. Rockets are awesome.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Do you ever see David Windestall's rocket knife project?
Oh, I don't think I've seen the knife, not rocket knife.
All right, hang on. This is not in the official show outline, but real quick, if you like rockets, I don't think he does these anymore.
Great creator, definitely.
For sure. David Windestall, here, Blunty, I think you'll be able to see this once I put it on the stream. David Windestall, rocket knife. He takes things. This was back in the days of like the hydraulic press and the 1,000-degree knife. I think David was trying to capture that. And he took...
Oh, yeah, very hot knife, very 1,000-degree knife.
Yeah, so he's got this track, and he puts the thing at the end of the track, and then he has a knife on a sled.
Skeleton rat.
This rocket-powered sled.
1.
That will never get old! Oh my God. All right, so people who like rockets can check that out too.
Yeah, good times with rockets, man. It's hard not to have fun with a rocket, I think.
All right, until you blow your face up, then it's not fun.
Sure.
Don't blow your face up, kids. I don't think I've ever fired an actual rocket, like a hobby rocket. You ever fired one of them?
No, it sounds like a video though.
There you go. All right. We need to add this to the military. SS Blind FPV. Yeah, rocket knife. That's what we need. I think the military has rockets. All right, moving on. What's next, Blunty? I'm not even touching this one.
we have a beast class drone but he decided, like, you know, Beast Class is loud, but I don't think it's loud enough. So let's add some oomph to it, you know. So he 3D printed some whistles. Just a little amount.
I'm not gonna lie, it sounds good.
It's not bad, right?
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty cool. I've never seen anybody put whistles on a drone. We were actually, like, we had one of those parallel conversations where if you have an idea, you know, you have an idea and then you see the idea just got done.
Yeah.
Me and the know-it-alls were talking in the Discord, and we were like, oh, we should put whistles on a drone, and then we realized somebody just put whistles on a drone.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Neat idea, though. I want to see train horns. I want to see kazoos. I want to see
kazoos.
Yeah.
You know that sound? You know the sound that bombs make? You know the.
Oh yeah.
Do you know that's actually like a whistle that they put on the front of the bomb for psychological effect? I don't know if it had a purpose.
Oh.
Bombs don't make that sound when they fall.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
When you think about it, you're like, yeah, why would the bomb whistle? Interesting.
It actually is a thing. Dominic Clifton says that's awesome. See, and everybody loves Beast. Everybody loves X Class, Beast Class. What does not to love? Dominic Clifton, hope you're doing well, man. Dominic's been in the hospital for the last couple of weeks with I think they finally figured out what was wrong with him. I don't remember what it was, but I hope you're doing well, man. I see you in the chat.
Yeah.
And,
I don't know how much he wants us to go into it, but I think it's like there's some missing fluid in his brain or something, and it's like his brain's resting on his skull, I think. It's like some weird condition. And yeah, they're working on it. So, but it does look like they figured it out, and they've got it all. They were worried for a while and didn't know what it was, so it does look pretty promising. Yeah. Good to hear he's doing well, and he's been working on his flight controller like crazy in the hospital. I've seen all kinds of updates from him. He's been posting tons of updates. He's got his H7 running with BetaFlight. He's got all kinds of stuff up and going. He's even trying to do video out, but he didn't have a monitor at his bed. So,
such a weird world we live in, right?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, we're glad you're doing. We hope you're doing okay there, Dominic. Good to see you in the chat.
Absolutely.
He says he's still in the hospital, but his brain bleed is getting better.
Great. Good to hear.
Hang in there, man. All right. Let's see. We got two more. Again, it's good because we're coming up to. We're only going to go for about an hour instead of like an hour and a half, like last week. DRL Simulator is now available on PlayStation. If you like DRL Simulator and you want to play it on your PlayStation, now you can. The big question everybody's going to ask, Blunty, can you use an actual controller or do you have to use a PlayStation controller?
I'm not 100% on that, but I think on PlayStation you can use an actual controller.
I know you can for DCL.
Yeah, I think Xbox is the one where you can't. I believe PlayStation you can. But yeah, I'm not 100% sure if that's supported. I was not able to find that information before the stream.
Okay. I would hope that they would know that DCL is their competition there, but we'll see. DRL, of course, the ability to compete for DRL. You could literally win a seat.
On
DRL.
Yeah, that'll be interesting because maybe they'll include the console in the competition. So if everybody's trying out next year, there'll be a lot more in the competition. Yeah,
who knows? Somebody playing with a PlayStation controller might come and just rock everybody.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I was just looking at the chat there. All right, that's it for that. The last thing we've got here is a rant. And instead of just being like, there's this thing, like you can't use bidirectional Dshot on some BLHeli ESCs, isn't that unfortunate? The reason it's a rant is because it's not an accident. It's kind of on purpose.
Yeah, it seems to be on purpose. So basically, for some reason, some BLHeli ESCs are shipping locked. And that's how JESC describes it. That's how Joe Lucid describes it. And that's how Matthias over at Blue Jay described it to me as well. Basically, there's some kind of internal lock that is placed on these ESCs. And it seems to even let you flash them. But for some reason, once flashed, they can't actually communicate over bidirectional Dshot telemetry. Something about I'm not sure, something about the design or something about the way it works. When you're flashing, you're not actually flashing all the way through the bootloader, or there's a second bootloader. I was trying to confirm what exactly was happening. But essentially what happens is there's a lock, and you can clear that by flashing over the C2 interface. So the same way you would flash like a brick DSC. You use like an ST-Link or an Arduino, and you flash onto the C2 pads on the ESC, and you can actually flash the proper firmware just like you normally would, and it'll work. Whereas you cannot flash that over serial pass-through.
Right.
Yeah.
Bobby Bags in the chat says, I assumed all BLHeli32 ESCs worked with bidirectional Dshot. I believe that's true, Bobby Bags, although I'm not 100% sure. Just to be clear, we're talking about BLHeli S ESCs, not BLHeli32. Is that right, Blunty?
All BLHeli32 ESCs sold on 32.7 or later will be out of the box bidirectional Dshot. If not, you'll have to flash it to 32.7 to get bidirectional Dshot. I believe at this point every ESC has a target, but I'm sure somebody will send me one that doesn't after that.
Yeah. So if you're trying to flash JESC, and what we see happening in these GitHub reports is somebody gets a 4-in-1 ESC or a toothpick AIO, and they go to flash it, and like 3 of the ESCs flash and the 4th one doesn't, which is super confusing because like why? They're all the same. Joe Lucid speculates on the GitHub repo that there's just a mistake being made by accident in the flashing and they're getting locked. So maybe nobody's doing it on purpose, but it's like, it's definitely...
Well, here's what I'll say is it appears to have been happening for a while, because there's, one of these pull requests is from 2019. And it was a different brand of ESC, but it seems like it has been happening for a little while now. So if this is something that can be fixed, I guess we need to let these companies know, let BetaFPV know, and try to get it fixed on these future revisions of these ESCs. It's just unfortunate for the users. But it does look like if you flash with BlueJay currently, or if you flash with the newer version of JESC, you'll get a warning message. And the warning message will tell you this ESC is locked and will not support
instead of it just randomly not working and not telling you why. That's nice.
Yeah, unfortunately, like BLHeli M, for instance, Jazz Maverick BLHeli M 16.9 does not have that warning. It will just flash the ESC. So you'll just be confused as to why it doesn't work, just like earlier versions of JESC.
Yeah. There's people in the chat saying, oh, I had a BetaFPV HX115 and it worked fine. I actually had a BetaFPV HX115 and it didn't work. It seems to be kind of random, but am I wrong? Does the common thread seem to be BetaFPV?
So far, the ones that I've seen have been beta. I know that was your experience, and the ones that I've seen were beta. The really old one from 2019 was like a random company from like a no-name kind of cheap ESC, it looked like. Okay. So maybe a couple different companies that had the issue. But what I thought was interesting is the user who actually reported this to me, and the reason I found out about this, he actually bought a new 1S AIO from BetaFPV. The original 1S AIO did not have this problem, the one that came from BetaFPV, and then he replaced it with the no RX version, the updated one, because he was putting his own RX on it. That one will not use bidirectional Dshot.
So the C2 Flash can fix it, but the C2 Flash is a little bit much for some people. You got to have an Arduino to flash it with and solder to some really, really tiny pads on the flight controller. So that's not really a viable solution. Bidirectional Dshot, I mean, if I had a quad and I couldn't use it, I probably would be upset, but I probably would just turn it off and go on and fly and try to have a good time. But I hope that somebody out there from BetaFPV is paying attention and is like, oh, hey, why is this happening? And then they figure it out and stop it from happening. So,
yeah.
All right. There you go. That's going to do it. We're done for the week, Blunty. And we're right on time at 7 p.m.
Yeah. I think we got it all taken care of in a good, reasonable amount of time this week. So, yeah.
Thank you guys for coming out this week. We are here every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. With the FPV news. If you guys have any news, a lot of these news items were submitted by you guys. So if you have any news items you think we should cover, email news@fpvknowitall.com with news items for the segment. Go subscribe to Blunty's channel. It's linked. You know what? I figured out why I couldn't save the show notes and the video description. It was when I tried to tag your name in the title. But when I just put ItsBlunty as text instead of tagging your channel. But there's a link to his channel down in the video description as well. So And
Yeah, make sure you also go down and subscribe to the channel you're on right now, Joshua Bardwell's channel. Shoot a like for this video so it recommends this video and other videos like it. Yeah, and we appreciate you being here like every week. If this is your first week, thanks for hanging out. Yeah, we'll see you next week on Tuesday. And Joshua, we'll see you next week on Sunday.
Sunday, I'll be streaming. We have a by the way, since you mentioned it, we have a very special stream next Sunday. I will be interviewing Chris Rosser, Kebab FPV, and Ryan Harrell, all at the same time, talking about motors.
That'll be a fun one. That's going to be a fun one.
Yeah. All right. Did I win this weekend at the race, Northern Tier FPV? I did not win, unfortunately. Vanover was faster than me, and so was Evan Turner.
Darn.
Although I will say, Vanover, he, for whatever, it was single elimination, and for whatever reason, he crashed out off the gate, off the blocks, in his first, in the first actual heat. He was flying Freedom class, which is where you take a 6S quad and you fly it on 3S, sort of. So maybe his throttle was off, but he got off the gate and he just kind of went thump, 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 thump. That was it. So technically, Vanover and I both made it the same distance in the race.
Yeah.
So I'm just as fast as him. No.
It's always fun. It's always fun when the fast guy crashes out on like the 5th gate, and then you just slow boat the rest of the track.
Yep. Anyway, that's going to do it, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming out. Happy flying. Bye, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you, Plenty.